definite. No.
Leave it alone, honey, it's fine.
This other views, this gallery.
Yeah, just leave it at gallery. That's the best view.
And then, here's the rabbi. Is unmute.
In the days we prepare for the seder, it seems like we'll never be done. There's more to clean than can ever be cleaned. Grab a candle and search for the crumbs. When the seder table is ready and all the chametz has been found, our family arrives and the sun leaves the sky. At the table we'll gather around. After seder tonight, Passover retold with our principle, thanking God above, and the seder play helps us tell our story. At the seder tonight. Now, Pharaoh, you're a mighty king, but I'm telling you, beware. You come into my palace making threats, Moses, you dare. Your days of making Jews your slaves are done forevermore. And if you challenge God's and plagues will shake you to your core. I'm telling you, you'd best listen to me, or God will bring your kingdom to its knees. It's time to let my people go, you see, 'cause we just can't wait to be free. We're eating the matzah for 8 nights and days. We're eating the matzah, so put that bread away. We had to hurry from the land we were slaves, so we're chametz free culinarily. I made it a matzah. And who doesn't love some good matzah? What's a matzah? Nothing. What's a matzah with you? We had to hurry from the land we were slaves, so we're chametz free culinarily. We're eating the matzah.
All right, Chag Sameach, everybody. It is wonderful to be gathered with you for Seder. Everybody hear me okay? All right, so...
There once was a time in Egypt
Oh,
land. The
goodness.
Jews were
That
slaves
was
in the
not what I
deserts,
wanted to
and
do.
we
Hold
cried
on.
out for an outstretched hand. Oh, let my people go. Soon.
Did you guys hear that? So, it's great that we're together for Seder, and this is going to be a Seder. As you look around the room, see who's here, see who you know, see who you'd like to know. We have people of all different ages. We have people who have volunteered to do parts of the Seder. And we are big enough that I'm not going to go around and introduce you, but I do hope that you have us on gallery view so you can see everyone. Every once in a while, you might want to be on speaker view. Also, I'm going to screen share the Haggadah. And it's fine if you want to chat with people, as somebody has already done down below. And I'll just let you know, it is really hard for me to read the chat. So try not to chat with me because I'm going to be busy leading the Seder. Hi, VJ. I just want you to read the middle column, VJ. Okay? About questions. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to go through the basic rituals. We're going to have a few videos or songs here and there. And you know I love music. I hope we do some singing of our own. I may shift things up as we go so that we make it. I hope you have things ready at your table. So you've got perhaps a Seder plate. Perhaps I hope you have your matzah, some maror, bitter herb, and charoset. Thank you. Be sure to take your Elijah cup. Ours is already filled. You may want to fill it now or have different people pour in your own glass and then fill it. That can be a little messy, but it's a way of everyone contributing. And if you happen to have a Miriam's cup, we fill that with water. We're not going to do that as an act during the Seder, but we want to acknowledge Miriam and Elijah. So we'll have them ready. And if you, we're not going to actually eat the meal till after because that just makes it a little more complicated on screen. We're going to go through all the parts from beginning to end and then we'll sign off and people can have their meals. However, there is a trick, which many of you probably know, that the first thing we're going to eat is karpas. I hope that you didn't just put out parsley for karpas because that's not particularly filling. But we happen to have a plate of all kinds of vegetables. So if you haven't gotten that together and you have some carrots or tomatoes or whatever, celery, get that together because you can nibble on that and keep the tummies satisfied until time for the dinner. So without further ado, I'm going to light my candles. I invite you, if you choose, to go and light yours at the same time. I'll sing the bracha. You can mute or you can turn me off if you want to do your own blessings. It's up to you how you bring us into your home. But Brian and I are going to light our candles for the holiday. Lahadlik ner shel yom tov, and I'm going to screen share so you have the bracha to make it easier for you to follow. So this is our Haggadah, and here is the candle lighting. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel yom tov. Somebody wants to say an amen?
Amen. Amen.
Great. Anytime we do a bracha, somebody wants to unmute and say an amen so everyone can hear it, and then it's more of us hearing one another and creating brachot together, creating blessings. So The order of the seder is not included here, but I'm going to sing through it once. And if you know it, I invite you to unmute and sing with me. Kadesh Orchatz Karpas Yachatz Magid Rochza Motzi Matzah Maror Orech Shulchan Orech Zafon Barech Halel Nirtzah. So we start with Kadesh. We have not filled our cups, and it's our practice that we are reminded that a free person does not serve another person. We only serve all that is holy. And so in our house, we pour for one another as a sign of our respect for each other. And when you have your cup, please lift it, and then I'll screen share the Kiddush, the special Kiddush for Pesach. And then, of course, we end with Shechianu. Before we do, while you're pouring, is there something that you want to say Shechianu for in this moment, in a sentence? Something aside from Pesach that is a Shechianu moment for you right now. Just go ahead and unmute. Did anyone have a meal in person with someone you haven't been with in a while? Okay, that's a Shechianu moment. Has anyone seen something you've planted coming up in the garden? That's a Shechianu moment. Any other, what else do you have?
I have a new hip from a couple of weeks ago.
A new hip, Shechianu. Use it in good health. One more.
Our child has gone to school in person.
Shechianu. And Stephanie and Ian?
We finally got to meet our new little grandniece.
Shechianu. All right, so think about all these wonderful new things of this springtime, and I invite you to lift your cup. And again, it will go on mute, but I'll ask you to do an amen at the very end, okay? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher karanu lavodato v'romamanu bikdushato v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava moadim l'simcha chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom Chag hamatzot hazeh Zaman chirutenu Mikra kodesh Zecher litziat Mitzrayim Kelenu karata ve'otanu kidashta Lavodatecha Moadei kodshecha V'simcha uv'sason inchaltanu Baruch ata Adonai Mekadesh Yisrael V'hazmanim. Before we drink, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. L'chaim. Okay, that first cup is done. And now we go to Orchatz, step 2. This is washing hands without a bracha. The bracha comes before motzi later. And so I'm going to wash here. I don't think there's water in here. Did you put water in there? All right, put water in there. And while we're washing, I'm going to put on a video. Water has an important part in the story, both in washing hands and crossing the Red Sea and Moses being saved from the Nile and Miriam providing water in the desert, which was essential for life. And crossing of the sea has had an important symbolic meaning to many people. We've used it a lot this year. Now I want to share with you a particular video from, no, not that one. I want to share a video from a new rabbi, Rabbi Sandra Lawson, a graduate of the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College. Is that the one? Sandra is the new director of diversity at the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College. Is that one right? Yeah. And she is going to be giving us the song Wade in the Water with new lyrics that she's created as a rabbi for Pesach. Okay.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. My God's gonna trouble the water. See those people dressed in white. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, it must be the children of the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. Let me tell you, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. My God's gonna trouble the water. See those people dressed in black. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, they come a long way and they ain't turning back. God's gonna trouble the water. Here we go now, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. My God's gonna trouble the water. See those people dressed in red. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, it must be the people that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Here we go now, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. My God's gonna trouble the water. See those people dressed in blue. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, come a long way and they're coming through. God's gonna trouble the water. Here we go, now wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. My God's gonna trouble the water. Now if you don't believe I've been redeemed, God's gonna trouble the water. Well, follow me down to the Jordan stream. God's gonna trouble the water. Yeah, now wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. My God's gonna trouble the water. Nachshon went down the Red Sea. God's gonna trouble the water. He did it so we could all be free. God's gonna trouble the water. Let me tell you now, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. My God's gonna trouble the water, wade in the water. wade in the water, children, wade in the water. My God's gonna trouble the water.
All right. We've gone through Orchatz, the water, and now it's time for Karpas. And this is the time to start passing out greens. We won't eat them yet. We are going to take the sweetness of spring, but hold a piece of the bitterness, the tears of Egypt, of whatever Egypt that we are in or we are remembering, and we're going to dip them and say the blessing in a moment. Before we do, let's stick with spring. And I'll invite you again, if you want to unmute, what's a sign of spring that you have seen that makes you joyful? Sign of spring. Okay, I saw Ree. Who's that? I can't. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, Liza. Go ahead. Liza.
Flowers.
Flowers. Anybody else seen different kinds of flowers? Claudia, what have you seen?
Flowers that were blooming when the lockdown happened last year. So it means we got through a whole year. Woo!
Awesome. That is a sign of a whole different kind of spring, a hopefulness. Last year we were being locked down, didn't know when the end would be in sight. Now we have a vision. Merle, do you have a sign of spring?
Daffodils today. Daffodils.
Daffodils, crocuses, snowdrops. What else? Anybody seen a robin?
Yeah.
Dan, Steve?
Bird calls. Beautiful bird calls.
Yeah, wonderful bird calls. I want to learn what they all are.
And lots of robins.
And anybody else?
Baseball season.
All right. Baseball season. Thank you, Ava. Great.
You got it.
Everybody got your karpas? I'm going to put the bracha up so you can say the blessing over the fruit of the earth. That's what green vegetables or other vegetables are. So before we do that, we have a reading from American Jewish World Service, and I'm going to read a paragraph and then you respond. So you can unmute. In the telling of the Passover story, we recount the oppression that our ancestors experienced when we were slaves in Egypt. We dip a growing vegetable, karpas, into salt water to taste their tears of grief mingled with our hopes for life, health, and renewal for a more just world. Your turn.
This year, the tears
They are tears of profound loss, a year of loss of life, loss of livelihoods, loss of time spent with loved ones, and dreams unfulfilled.
But the hope
is a hope kindled by the marvels of vaccines, fueled by the promise of an end to this plague. It is hope that we will emerge from this into a better, kinder world.
as the
Karpas ritual teaches us, we must look towards the future with a sense of possibility. Passover arrives on the precipice of spring, when new growth is just around the corner. All over the world, resilience, strength, compassion, and innovation will grow from under this tragedy.
We honor the tears, but we also bless the hope. We'll dip and recite. Baruch atah Adonai Elohim borei peri ha'adamah.
Amen.
This Passover, may the brightness of our hope break through our tears and strengthen us in this moment together. And now it's time for Yachatz, where we're going to take the middle matzah. Each matzah has its own purpose. The middle matzah, as you know, is the one we are going to hide I'm not sure
It's this
who's
button.
gonna find it in your house. Last night we did it on Zoom where we hit it and then moved the computer around till they found it. But I'm gonna hand it to Brian to break. And I've got my Afikoman bag. And you can go hide it and we'll show everybody later where it went, okay? Blessing. And this is a reading. Did someone, I don't think anyone took this. So, if you did, tell me, but I don't think anyone did. Since I see Steve and Jan Snitzer, I'm going to ask one of you to read this piece by Tamara Cohen, please.
Some do not get the chance to rise like golden loaves of challah, filled with sweet raisins and crowned with shiny braids. Rushed, neglected, not needed by caring hands, we grow up afraid that any touch might cause a break. There are some ingredients we never receive. Tonight, let us bless our cracked surfaces and sharp edges, unafraid to see our brittleness and brave enough to see our beauty. Reaching for wholeness, let us piece together the parts of ourselves we have found and honor all that is still hidden.
Thank you, Jan. So with that in mind, we're ready to tell the story, Magid. And before we tell the story, we have an invitation. And I invite anyone who wants to read it with me. We'll read it in the Aramaic, and then we'll read it also in English. Anyone who wants to join. Ha lachma anya diachalu avahatana be'ar'a b'mitzrayim kol dichvin yetev yechur kol ditzrich yetev yichsach hashata hacha l'shana haba'a be'ar'a de Yisrael hashata avdei l'shana haba'a b'nei chorin. This is the bread of our poverty, which our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat. Let all who are in need come and celebrate Pesach. Now we are here next year in the land of Israel, either literally or figuratively, what that means to you. Now we are slaves. Next year, let us all be free. And I'm going to invite you to join in. We're going to read this paragraph in English, and when we get to the especially, we'll ask you to unmute and say something that comes to your mind as we think about our world that is enslaved in so many places and ways. May it be your will, Eternal One, our God, and God of our ancestors, that just as you took the Israelites from among the Egyptians and led them through the sea, so may you have mercy on those among the house of Israel and among all people. Especially, I would add the people in Myanmar.
The Uyghurs,
Unaccompanied children who are at our border.
The voters in Georgia.
The people trapped in Gitmo.
Immigrants.
refugees,
All those who are oppressed and victims of harassment and discrimination. And it's
Assyrian people.
Incarcerated people. All, many more, that all who are distressed and oppressed, whether on land or sea, save them, take them from the narrow straits, min hametzar, to abundant favor, from darkness to light, and from enslavement to redemption, speedily in our days, and let us say,
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Before we go to the 4 questions, we say this statement, let all who are hungry come and eat. And it's a little late to invite people to your seder. And this year, we're not inviting people in general. So given those restrictions, I invite you to consider, Is there a way you can extend your hospitality into the world? Are there organizations that you will commit to support in honor of Pesach, whether it's Family Table or the Greater Boston Food Bank or Mazon or American Jewish World Service, whatever organization you see as aligned with our values of opening our doors and allowing more people to eat, invite you to consider. If you want to make a commitment, please put it in the chat so other people can hear. If there are organizations they don't know about, put it in the chat so people can see. And we are going to go now to VJ, who's going to read us an introduction to the 4 questions. And just to let you guys know that Anna Angler and David Levy are going to chant the 4 questions for us when VJ is done. So you will be next.
Can you hear me fine?
Yes, that's great, VJ.
Perfect. Each Pesach, the 4 questions asked by the youngest child are exactly the same. Why do we ask them year after year? Because as we grow and change, our questions take on new meanings and the answers to them differ. Because as we grow and change, we understand that there is no one right answer. Because as we grow and change, a different one among us may be asking the questions for the first time. To ask questions is to acknowledge first and foremost that we do not live in isolation, that we need each other. To ask questions is to signal our desire to grow. By admitting what we do not know, we take the first steps toward greater knowledge and learning. To ask questions is to signify our freedom.
Thank you, VJ. I know you're asking good questions, ones you never thought of before. And now it says to fill the second cup. Does anyone have a question? The question I want to ask is, why do we fill the second cup now? Well, the point is not that we drink from it, but that we start with a full cup, because later we're going to be emptying our cup for the 10 plagues. And we need to start with a full cup so that we feel that we have given something up, that we have lost something when the 10 plagues come, and we will not drink from this cup until it's time for the next blessing. So thank you for asking that question. Now we have some other questions, and I want to see if Anna and David, do you need me to screen share, or you want to do this on your own?
I have a book here, so I can do it with this, but I don't know if David does.
Yes, I do.
All right, so
Okay.
Anna and David, and then Caleb has offered to read the English. So go for it.
1, 2, 3.
מה נשתנה
השתנה הלילה הזה
מכל הלילות,
מכל הלילות
שבכל הלילות
אנו אוכלים המיצו מצה המיצו מצה הלילה הזה כולו מצה הלילה הזה כולו מצה שבכל הלילות אנו שאר ירקות הלילה הזה מרור הלילה הזה מרור שבכל הלילות אנו מרטיבים אפילו בעם אחד הלילה הזה שתה ועמי הלילה הזה שתה ועמי שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים ויושבים Dream.
Uven.
Dream. Hawaii Laza, Hawaii Laza, Hawaii Laza, Hawaii Laza, Hawaii Laza,
Kuvan.
is the dreams.
Yasher Koch, that was amazing, and I am delighted to have the two of you. And now I'm going to unspotlight Anna so that we get to see Caleb.
Why is this night different from all other nights? Why? I mean, on all other nights we eat leaven or unleavened bread. Why on this night do we eat only matzah? On all other nights we eat various kinds of vegetables. Why on this night do we eat bitter herbs? On all other nights we need dip or not dip our vegetable even once. Why on this night do we dip them twice? On all other nights we eat either sitting up or reclining. Why on this night do we eat reclining?
Thank you so much. So we're going to
Good job.
you have asked really good questions, and I'm counting on people to continue to ask questions. Those are the ones you were given. I hope there are some you come up with. But since you asked those questions, we're going to give an answer. And this answer is very straightforward. In fact, we read it in the Torah this morning in the synagogue, that when Passover comes around every year, your kids are supposed to ask, why do we do this? And this is the answer that we're supposed to give, and we will do it in song. Avadim hayinu, hayinu, ata v'nechorin, v'nechorin. Avadim hayinu, ata v'nechorin. Avadim hayinu, ata v'nechorin, v'nechorin. We were slaves to Pharaoh, and now we are free. That's it. And that is a story we retell over and over, because we may not be feeling like we are all physical slaves, but we are slaves in so many ways. And we are constantly trying to free ourselves, whether it's we've been slaves to this pandemic and we want to see ourselves free, but we're also slaves to ideas that trap us into thinking things that aren't true, or into making choices that aren't right for us or aren't healthy for other people. And we have to constantly remember that we need to be freed. And to continue this story, I'm going to invite Lisa and Alex, the Kaplan Short family, to share this version of Magid from the poet Marge Piercy.
The courage to let go of the door handle, the courage to shed the familiar walls whose very stains and leaks are comfortable as the little moles of the upper arm, stains that recall a feast, a child's naughtiness, a loud blattering storm that slapped the roof hard, pouring through.
The courage to abandon the graves dug into the hill, the small bones of children and the brittle bones of the old whose marrow hunger had stolen. The courage to desert the tree planted and only begun to beat. The riverside where promises were shaped. The street where the empty pots were broken.
The courage to leave the place whose language you learned as early as your own, whose customs, however dangerous or demeaning, bind you like a halter. You have learned to pull aside, to move your load, the land fertile with the blood spilled on it, the roads mapped and annotated for survival.
The courage to walk out of the pain that is known into the pain that cannot be imagined. Mapless, walking into the wilderness, going barefoot with a canteen into the desert, stuffed in the stinking hold of a rotting ship, sailing off the map into the dragon's mouth.
Cathay, India, Siberia, Goldena, Medina, leaving bodies by the way like abandoned treasure. So they walked out of Egypt. So they bribed their way out of Russia under loads of straw. So they steamed out of bloody smoking charnel house of Europe, out of the bloody smoking charnel house of Europe on overloaded freighters forbidden all ports.
Out of pain into death or freedom or a different painful dignity into squalor and politics. We Jews are all born of wanderers, with shoes under our pillows and a memory of blood that is ours raining down. We honor only those Jews who changed tonight, those who chose the desert over bondage.
Who walked into the strange and became strangers and gave birth to children who could look down on them, standing on their shoulders for having been slaves. We honor those who let go of everything but freedom, who ran, who revolted, who fought, who became other themselves.
Thank you so much for reading that moving poem. And so, freedom is not an easy thing. It's not simply about doing what you want. Freedom sometimes means that you have to give something up. Or if you're going to give someone else freedom, you give something up. And so we recall that there were plagues that were meant to help the Israelites recognize the power they had behind them was God in order to be free. And it was also the plagues that were meant to tell Pharaoh, there is a power greater than you, and you need to be humbled. And sadly, to accomplish both of those, there were many innocents, many bystanders, many others who suffered from these plagues. And so it's our practice to take our cup now, which was full, in joyous celebration, and we're going to take your finger or a spoon, and if you want, you can unmute. I will say a plague, and you can repeat it after me as we take out 10 drops or globs of wine or grape juice from your cup. Dam, Sfardea, Yinim, Arov, Dever, Yapin, Barad, Arbe, Oshech, Akat Bechorot. The Holy One brought 10 plagues upon the Egyptians. They were blood, frogs, lice, beasts, cattle plague, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and death of the firstborn. And on the other side of the sea, the people who had been enslaved for 400 years were able to sing. And the story of Miriam, whose cup we have here, is that she was wise enough that not only did she put the matzah on her back, and it didn't rise because they were in such a hurry, but when she packed up to leave Egypt, she had very little room to carry anything, but she brought along her tambourine because she knew that at some point everyone would feel like singing. And she wanted to make sure to capture that moment. Even though there would be hard moments ahead and there were hard moments before, simply to stop and to sing together. So I invite you, even though you're on mute, we can't hear each other, to join in this joyous song about Miriam and the women dancing and singing. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And Miriam was a weaver of unique variety. The tapestry she wove was one which sang our history. With every thread and every strand she crafted her delight. A woman touched with spirit, she dances toward the light. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. As Miriam stood upon the shores and gazed across the sea, the wonder of this miracle she soon came to believe. Whoever thought the sea would part with an outstretched hand, and we would walk to freedom and march to the promised land. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And Miriam the prophet took her timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her just as she had planned. And Miriam raised her voice with song, she sang with praise and might. We've just been through a miracle, we're gonna dance tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. So I'm gonna give everyone an opportunity to watch a video. It's 9 minutes long, so if anyone needs to take a break, particularly if kids want to move around, this is the time to do it before we go to Dayenu. This is a version of the seder, all 15 parts, all spoken by workers of all different kinds. And they're going to teach us something about the 15 parts of the seder, and we'll watch the video, and then we'll come back, and having watched it, we will sing Dayenu. So I hope you'll, even if you're turning your camera off, that you will join in watching another video. What's that one? That one's Sandra. Okay.
We at Local 26 formed the line to celebrate even during a long battle with a whirlwind pandemic. Like the Israelites who walked out Egypt, we see there a platform and is a new. During the pandemic, over 90% of workforce was laid off, but collective struggle having made our union bond strong and ready to battle time.
Has there ever been a time that hand washing has been so front and center? The nurses of the M&A have always known the importance of sanitation as the safest step before any activity. As frontline workers, we honor those who care for the sick and mark Passover as a time of renewal.
Carpas es una verdura fresca que simboliza la llegada de la primavera y de la nueva vida. Durante COVID-19, los trabajadores agrícolas arriesgamos nuestras vidas para llevar al mundo esas verduras y todos los demás alimentos que necesitamos. Yo trabajo con la coalición de trabajadores de Immokalee para asegurar que los tomates sean cultivados en condiciones de trabajo justos. Por eso también incluimos un tomate en el plato del seder. Mojamos verduras en agua salada para recordar las lágrimas que derramaron los israelitas cuando eran esclavos en Egipto. En este momento, cuando nosotros los trabajadores agrícolas, igual como los trabajadores de primera línea, seguimos luchando, incluso mientras derramamos lágrimas, recordamos que hay una nueva vida y que la primavera está a la vuelta de la esquina.
When we break bread together, we create bonds of friendship, respect, and care. At this point in the seder, we will break the middle matzah and hide part of it away to share later. Cultural messages have broken bonds of connection between us. We are taught that some members of our community are worth more than others. At the Harvard Graduate Student Union, we acknowledge that there is value in all who labor. We look forward to the day when we discover our shared humanity and the broken and marginalized parts of our community are included and celebrated.
During Magid, we tell the story of the Israelites who marched out of Egypt. The Exodus story is, in essence, a tale of immigrant workers who are oppressed by a large, powerful government that no one believes can be overcome. Not Pharaoh, not the Israelites, not even Moses. As educators, our job is to inspire the next generation to learn and grow and believe in their own power. We teach history, fight to teach a curriculum that reflects our students of color, their cultures, and their histories, and fights against xenophobia in all its forms. And do it in a place that is safe for all students and all educators.
Spiritually, we cleanse ourselves to prepare for the reciting of the blessing. Once again, we prepare for the food to come. We need to be reminded, out loud and often, of the intention we have set, the purpose that drives us. At the Mass Building Trades Council, we are so proud of how hard our team has worked to uphold new health and safety protocols and to keep each other safe, particularly in the days of the pandemic.
SEIU 509 is currently organizing workers at North Suffolk Mental Health Association. The workers are on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, putting their own health and their family's health at risk to care for the clients they serve. They are fighting for good wages and benefits. In Hebrew, matzah is the bread of poverty. It also means bread of oppression. In Judaism, there is no distinction between poverty and oppression. When people live in poverty, that is oppression.
Maror is the bitter herbs. We eat the bitter herb so that we too ingest the bitterness that causes us physical discomfort, so that we share in the pain that so many feel on the inside. We cannot insulate ourselves from the distress that others are suffering.
To encourage, we eat the Heli sandwich. The charset is a symbolic of the moral used by the Israeli slaves when they lay bricks for the Pharaoh's monuments. At the North Atlantic State Regional Council of Carpenters, we never forget the sacrifice of those that came before us. They worked far too many hours for little pay and dangerous conditions.
As we set the table and get ready to feast, Matahari Women's Worker Center honors all restaurant workers and domestic workers who are holding our homes together and setting our tables. Many have lost their lives during the pandemic, but are not recognized by those in power. Many are forced to work in unsafe conditions to provide for their families.
At this point in the seder, we reveal the hidden half of the middle matzah and share it with all assembled. Our work reveals that which is hidden, lifting up the voices of those who have not been heard and bringing to light those who have become invisible. We celebrate successes and renew our commitment to push for what is just. Racial equality, immigration reform, affordable childcare, rent and housing relief, and a living wage for all.
Once we have eaten and are satisfied, we pause and open the door for Elijah the prophet. We say, "All who are hungry, come and eat." The Lift Our Kids Coalition is fighting to end deep poverty and ensure that everyone has enough to get by.
Hallel is a time to sing songs of praise. This year, the workers at Join for Justice organized and won recognition for the Join Workers Union, because every worker deserves a union, including at nonprofits. When we join together in solidarity, it is a moment of joy. Each of us has a role to play in the task of liberation, and when we lift our voices together in song, we can imagine a world where all of us are free and fortify ourselves for the work of bringing it into being.
Just as the Israelites were freed from Egyptian bondage, we hold hope that this year will bring freedom from oppression and degradation. The message of Passover is that individually, even a Moses will fail. But together, as a united force, we can overcome the oppression of the plague of economic degradation. Next year, may we rejoice together in freedom, in fairness, in community, and in person.
Okay, well, I'll come back. And I want to see, did anybody see in that video yourself as a worker? Did anybody in that video connect with anybody that you heard? We had lots of different kinds of workers. And I think that represents a wide range of people who are experiencing slavery or experiencing liberation. The story of Pesach is told in each of those people's voices. And some of them had a lot to celebrate. The woman who, I think of SEIU, talked about their struggle with Suffolk. I think they won their struggle the week before, 2 weeks ago. So there are victories, and that's why we sing Dayenu. And there is a custom, I want the kids to be back at the table because this is one of my favorite customs. At least our kids enjoyed it growing up, and we still do it. It comes from the Jews who lived in Afghanistan, I believe. And they would take scallions, green onions, and pretend that they were taskmasters. And we actually hit each other gently with the scallions when we sing Dayenu. So I didn't tell you to get scallions, but we're going to do it for you while we sing, and I'll screen share. And as we sing, think about those small victories. Think about all the ways that we are getting closer to that world of liberation that we seek. We're going to sing 2 verses. Ilu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et Shabbat, natan lanu et Shabbat, dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Ilu natan natan lanu eta Torah natan lanu eta Torah Dayenu. Dayenu, Dayenu. Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. All right, so in the Magid, what's the purpose of telling this story? Year after year, the same old story. We tell it in different ways, but it is still the oldest story of our people. Why do we do that? Because we're told in every generation, each one of us should feel as if we have left Egypt. And I'm hoping that you've seen different ways that people have gotten themselves out of Egypt, or who have prayed and worked and struggled and united and allied with other people to bring everyone out of whatever Egypt they're in. And that should give us hope for the future that we can do the same. And so we're now going to lift our glass, which is not as full as the first glass. And in recognition both of the victories and also the difficulties in becoming free, we continue the process of liberation as we drink the second cup of wine. We've experienced the awareness of degradation that compelled the Israelites to resist enslavement. We drink this second cup in honor of redemption, even as we acknowledge the continuing struggle and the unknown road through the desert. Take your cup. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Okay, so now things are going to go kind of quickly. And in order to switch gears, we're going to sing a song that's going to lead us into a bit of eating. And you should be somewhat familiar with the tune, I hope. You can sing along at home. Nothing you can eat is such a yummy treat as matzah. 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 Nothing you can crunch has the satisfying crunch of matzah. Matzah. I've had oysterettes and Melba toast, but matzah is the cracker that thrills the most. You know that chametz can't compete
with the taste
of matzah. Matzah pie is great when it's served upon a plate with matzah. Manischewitz wine goes absolutely fine with matzah. Chocolate macaroon from a cardboard can.
That is the tastiest dessert ever made by man. You know the Pesach cuisine
supreme because it's based on matzah. Symbols of the time are the bitter herb, the wine, and matzah. Pharaoh is cajoled and the Exodus retold with matzah. The dough didn't rise when the Hebrews fled, and that's how we got unleavened bread. You know the seder is not
complete if you don't get to eat some matzah.
Thank you all for the chorus. And now I did that before we get to rachza, because when we wash our hands ritually with a bracha, then we focus completely on what we're about to eat. And I don't know if you've had your fill yet of matzah, but I'm going to give you all the instructions now, and I want you to really taste that crunch, that taste of poverty and the taste of freedom all wrapped up together. So first we're going to wash hands, then we're going to take a piece from the top matzah and a piece from the bottom matzah for everybody. If you've got 3 matzahs, that's what we'll do, and we will go right to the blessing after we wash hands. So I'm going to take my cup, and we'll wash here. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. And now for our taste of matzah with a blessing. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. All right. So liberation is not completely sweet. We still are going to take a taste of that bitterness of slavery with the bitter herb. But I'm going to take a little charoset. The charoset I made this year for the first time came from the Jews of Persia, which is now Iran. And we take a little maror, a little or a lot of charoset. Make sure you can get a bite. Even the youngest kids. Dip that maror into the charoset. But really, it's going to be a bad taste. And that's okay. Sometimes to know what a bad taste is. Okay? Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat maror. Ooh. All right, you haven't had enough maror yet? This is a custom dating back to temple times when there was a paschal lamb. In our family, we substitute for the zeroah, the bone, a roasted beet, which is, the rabbi said, was an acceptable substitute, which is great for people who don't want to have meat on their table. But we don't eat that. We're going to take some matzah. So again, this time you take from the middle matzah that you broke up before. You have the other half?
I have the middle matzah.
Okay. And another piece of maror. And there's no blessing. So as soon as you've got it, go ahead. And of course, the little charos, it doesn't hurt. And we eat what is called Hillel's sandwich. All right. So normally, we would go now to Shulchan Aruch. You would discover that there's a lot more delicious food than horseradish, bitter herbs, and matzah. We're going to save that for a little later. But I want to go through the other parts of the seder after Shulchan Aruch. And as we go to Tzafun, this is the time where we're going to look for that afikoman. And while we do that, we have a reading for Tzafun, which Stephanie and Ian Schur are going to read with us. So let me do that. Hear that.
Okay, now. Okay?
Okay, go ahead.
Children, this moment was the high point of the seder. This was the time we would search for and always find the afikoman, a portion of the middle matzah that had been hidden at the beginning of the seder. We knew that the seder could not be completed until the afikoman had been found and redeemed with gifts, so that everyone could be given a piece to nibble for dessert. And my parents always gave me 6 pennies.
Even as children,
We knew that it wasn't possible to find everything that was missing in life. As much as we prized the gifts we received for our bargaining, it was the hunt that we really loved. Running through the rooms and turning everything upside down. The older we get, the harder the search becomes. We aren't always sure what we are seeking, what the afikomen means to us, which dessert will bring us a sense of completion and satisfaction. Unlike during our childhood search, there are now fewer loving and reliable coaches in the next room giving us clues. There are no guarantees that we will find what we are looking for. But this we know, it is still the search that is important. The looking, the running, the turning everything upside down.
Thank you, Ian and Stephanie. And now we are going to turn things upside down. And I'm going to go on to speaker view because we can't go on until we find our afikomen. So Brian, we're going to turn it around. Help us find the afikomen.
So you go search.
You'll tell me if I'm hot or cold.
Hot or cold, yeah.
Is it in this room?
Yes. Getting very hot. Very, very hot. No, now you're getting colder. Getting cold. Oh, getting really colder. Getting colder. Oh, you're getting warmish. Warmish. Ah!
I found it! All right, now we can finish the seder. So normally we would say you can't eat anything after the afikomen, but this is just our appetizer. I'm going to save it for later. And we go on to Barech, and since we haven't eaten, we're not going to do the Birkat Hamazon, the blessing, but we will do the third cup because it was traditional in the ancient world that when you did the blessing after the meal, you did it over a cup of wine and said Borei Pri Hagafen, and that is how we get the third of the 4 cups. So make sure you have some wine, not too much, I hope, because you have empty stomachs. We dedicated the first cup of wine to awareness, the first step taken in the journey toward liberation. We drank the second cup in celebration of the redemption from Egypt. We now drink this third cup in gratitude for all the gifts we've been given. The Seder reminds us of the gifts of relationships, of friends and family. Even if we're not in the same place, we're here together. And of our material possessions. We are grateful for good food and drink. Yet most of all, we offer thanks for the greatest gift, the ability to challenge, to question, to choose, and therefore continually, every day, to strive for freedom. Join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
All right, now is the time I turn this over to Brian. And do you want me to screen share the...
Sure.
Or do you want to talk first?
Yeah, so I'll talk for just a second. So in Judaism, we connect Passover, which is liberation, to Shavuot, which is the holiday 49 days later, 7 weeks later. Shavuot means weeks, which is the celebration of the giving of the Torah, the giving of law, the moving from freedom to instruction under freedom. And they're also connected agriculturally, with Passover being the beginning of the spring harvest and Shavuot being the end of the spring harvest and starting the summer season. The custom is to count each of those 49 days, each of the 7 weeks, one by one, with tonight being the first one. So long ago, I heard this silly joke that we shouldn't be counting the Omer, we should be counting the Homer, as in Homer Simpson. And immediately came to me that was actually not too bad of a joke, and we could do something with that. So I started a website. This is now 22 years later, and to be honest, I can't believe I've kept this up for 22 years. But if you happen to want to keep track of this, at homercalendar.net, there's a very involved website that tracks Jewish references on The Simpsons and the history of the Omer ritual and a lot more.
Get out of it. Is it down here in the bottom? Keep talking.
And so,
I lost my cursor.
it's in the bottom.
Yeah, I don't. Okay.
Click on here and
There.
press escape.
There. Okay. Go ahead.
And so if you go to the Homer calendar website, there's a calendar, and for each day, oh my God, you're doing the whole thing. And for each day, there is a, how do you do this? There is the count for that day. So here it is. This is the stupid website. This is tonight. And so traditionally this is done standing. So if you want to stand, there's a blessing, and then you do the count. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al spirat ha'omer. Hayom Yom Echad LaOmer. Today is the first day of the Omer. Thank you for letting me. It's one joke taken way too far, but that's what it is.
So now we've begun a mitzvah that I hope you will continue. Find the site. You can do it every year. It's an easy thing to do, but it takes discipline to do it every night. Now we're going to open the door for Elijah. Let's find our Elijah's cup. Everybody take a good look at that cup, because Elijah is going to come to all of our houses simultaneously on Zoom. It's part of the magic of Zoom that Elijah is going to join us, and going to share the song Eliyahu Hanavi, and we also welcome Miriam Hanivia, Miriam the prophet, at the same time, because there was a custom that she would also bring a well at the end of Shabbat. Just like Elijah comes at the end of Shabbat, she had a well that people would go to for healing waters. So we'll sing to both of them. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Agiladi, Bimera v'yamenu, Yavo Eleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David, Miriam HaNeviah, Oz v'zimra b'yada, Miriam tirkod itanu, L'hagdil zimrat olam, Miriam tirkod itanu, L'taken et haolam, Bimera v'yamenu, Hitvienu, El Mei HaYeshua, El Mei HaYeshua. Hey, close that door. Oh, there's a lot less wine in here than there was before. Anybody else notice? So we're coming to, next would be Hallel and then Nirtzah, the close. And I don't know, I want to check with kids. I want to check with Anna and David and Caleb and Nora. So here's what I had hoped to do, but I know I'm running over, which is something I wish I didn't do. Before we end, I like singing Chad Gadya with my Beanie Babies, and we'll do it in English. That's a yes from Anna. So we should do that now. I just saw Anna, and then you guys will get to eat after. Ready? Brian, I need your help. Coming. Okay. So I'm not going to screen share it because you need to be able to see the animals, but we're going to do it in English, and you'll be able to figure it out. And anybody who wants to unmute and do an animal sound, because we start with a goat, and we'll go to different animals. Anybody who wants to unmute and do that animal sound, we welcome all animal sounds for Chad Gadya. Here we go. Should I see the animal? So you can do speaker view, or gallery view, whatever you choose. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. Came a cat and ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya.
Stop it.
Then came a dog and bit
Woof.
the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. Then came a stick and beat the dog that bit the cat that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. Then came the fire and burned the stick.
Crackle, crackle.
The dog. The cat. That ate the kid. Father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. Then came the water and quenched the fire that burned the stick that fell down, that beat the dog, that bit the cat, that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya. Then came the ox that drank the
water. Glug, 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 glug.
Fire. Crackle, crackle.
Dog that bit the cat.
No.
For 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya.
Yeah.
Then came the shochet, the butcher, the slaughterer. Came the shochet, killed the ox that drank the water, that quenched the fire, that burned the stick, that beat the dog, that bit the cat. My father bought losing. Chad Gadya. Name the angel of death. Killed Shochet, who slew the ox, who the water, that quenched the fire, that burned the stick, that beat the dog, bit the cat, that ate the goat. Him, Chad Gadya. Then came the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, who
Sparkle,
took
sparkle.
the angel of death, the Shochet, who slew the ox, drank water, quenched the fire, that burned the stick, that beat the dog, that bit the cat, that ate the kid. My father bought for 2 zuzim. I want to thank our cat for making a special appearance. Now we're at the end. I know we've left out some things. I'm sure there are things you love to do that we didn't get to. But we have fulfilled all that needs to be fulfilled. And now we drink our 4th cup. Awareness, redemption, gratitude accompanied our first 3 cups. This 4th cup is the cup of hope, something we really need. Hope that next year we will all be free, that next year children and parents, neighbors and nations will turn their hearts to one another. Hope that next year we will be alive and healthy and able to be together in person. Hope, that is the vision of Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, as a city of peace, meaning that we're in a world at peace. Let's raise our cups. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Now our seder is completed, every requirement fulfilled. Just as we've been privileged to observe it this year, may we continue to do so in years to come. You who are pure, dwelling on high, raise up your countless people and soon bring your offshoots strong, redeemed to Zion in joyous song. As we sing L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, we consider what is that dream vision that Yerushalayim represents. If not the physical Jerusalem, where do we want to be spiritually in the coming year? L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. So thank you for joining us in our home. I want to wish everyone Chag Sameach. This should be a time for joy, and if you can, for togetherness. And I hope you all have a luscious meal, even if it's a simple bowl of soup. Find joy and sustenance in it. And I look forward to seeing you in more joyous times. You can all unmute and we'll all wish each other Chag Sameach and anything else you want to wish each other.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Nice to see everyone.
Nice to see all you people. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
You're ready to go. Claudia.
Okay.
Chag Sameach, Claudia.
Chag Sameach, Lisa, Serena, everybody.
Chag Sameach, Ann and Susan.
Hi, Naomi. Hi, Susan.
Hey, Jeff.